we're capable of evolving. I start seeing a psychiatrist and a counselor. Thank God for counseling. People who immediately tell you what you need to do, run.
You know what I'm saying?
This is the Black Christian Influencers Podcast.
We're here again at this amazing podcast. This has been honestly one of the best experiences, just talking and sharing all of the stuff that's been inside of me, but it's kind of been like bottled up, right? I just haven't been able to like get it out. So we're going to share another great topic. And today we're going to even have a special guest. This special guest is honestly really special because literally Pastor David Winston is someone that's been in my life for the past 4 or 5 years consistently and just has allowed for me to grow. And it's been because of people like him that I've grown into who I am. People who are surrounding you should be better than you. They should make you better. And he does that for me. Like, him and his wife are just amazing people and just thought-provoking leaders. So I'm excited because we're going to talk about a lot of good stuff. First, let me introduce you to him. Pastor David Winston, welcome to this podcast.
Hey, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for tuning into the podcast. I'm so blessed to be here with you. And thank you for those kind words. It's just a blessing to be able to encourage somebody of your caliber. You're doing such amazing things.
Oh, shucks.
And I'm just really, not that like I'm a mentor to you, but I'm just so proud of you, if I could say it that way. I'm so proud of what God is doing through you and how hard you work. That blesses me to see how hard you work, how much you're willing to sacrifice to make the dream come alive.
Sheesh. God doesn't tell you everything you have to sacrifice up front, and I'm pretty glad about it because I probably would have turned back.
Isn't that all of us?
Yeah. I would have been like, oh, that's how much I got? Never mind. Just take me off the list. But I'm grateful because every time he gives me something else, and it's like he just gradually brings me along to where we're at now, where God is like literally blowing my mind daily. I'm blown away by the amount of people that I've been able to connect with, the type of people, the relationships I've built, and then just how quickly he can change your life. Like that. Some of us are sitting and like, God, when is it going to happen for me? And I think we feel that way sometimes because we think it takes a long time for us to get to the destination. God doesn't need a car. It doesn't have to be a long drive.
You're right.
He's teleportation style.
Come on.
Star Trek vibes.
Spiritual transit.
Hello.
Hey.
Seriously, that's the type of God we serve. But a lot of us are struggling because we're in this waiting space, the waiting room, I'll call it. I want to know from you, in your perspective, how do people deal with that time before the blow up, before the thing happens that changes their life? What do they do? How do you operate in the waiting space?
That's a great question. And first, let me help somebody feel seen. Let me affirm somebody for a second, because the waiting room can be one of the most stressful places that you will enter. Like, think about going to the waiting room, taking maybe a family member, or if you've ever had to be in the emergency room yourself.
Yes.
Like when you go to the emergency room and they say, okay, fill out this form, fill out the paper, and then you have to wait, right? 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. Yeah. If you're in the city of Chicago, 8 hours, you're just sitting there waiting.
Right.
And it's so frustrating. And the moments can be filled with anxiety because you don't know when you will be seen. Something can be happening that is like, you don't know what's going on. Is everything going to be okay? Is your family member going to be okay? You want them to be seen as quickly as possible. We've all seen it. We've all experienced it, or at least seen it in a movie somewhere.
Right.
And there's a lot of stress and anxiety that comes. And I want to affirm somebody to let them know that if you're feeling that way, you're not alone.
Yes.
Maybe you have some big dreams, visions, gifts, skills. You're waiting on a promotion at work or something. You're waiting for these things and you're like, when is it coming? I'm doing everything I know to do. I'm a good person. I'm a good person, Jackie.
Yes.
Why is it not happening for me? I go to church. I pay them tithes. Lord knows I pay the tithes. I sing in the choir. God, what about your boy?
You better preach, Pastor.
Does somebody feel me here today? And so,
Amen.
so the waiting room, though, you're waiting. There's that sense and loss of control. But in the midst of that, I believe that every gift, right? And when I say gift, I mean the talent, skill, or ability, the unique genius that's inside of you. Yeah. Every gift and every purpose has to withstand the waiting room.
Yes.
They have to go through a season of feeling possibly forgotten, overlooked, or maybe undervalued. And I believe that God makes it that way because he always wants to purify our hearts and our motives before he elevates us. And so we're going through this waiting room process, but I'm reminded of the scripture in Psalms 27 where it says, wait on the Lord and be of good courage. And as we wait on the Lord, I like to think about a waiter serving at a restaurant, right? Yeah. We call him a server, but we all also call him a waiter or a waitress. Right. And as they're serving the food, what do? They come, they take your order, and then they go and put it back in. If they put it in correctly, things are well. And so they bring out your food, right? Hopefully quickly. And then what do? They check on you after you've taken some bites. They say, is everything up to your standard? You know, is everything good? Does it taste good? Do I need to do anything else? Would you like something else? They're checking on you over and over again. So they're not necessarily a good waiter, what I've learned, because my wife, she actually had served and she's been a waitress before. I've never had the pleasure of being a waiter.
You're not missing nothing.
Yeah, thank God. But she would say that a good waiter or waitress wouldn't wait till there's a problem to check on you.
Oh, that is fact.
They would actually go and voluntarily check on you, right?
That's where you get your tips.
Come on, that's where you get your tips. And so what I like to think about as I wait on the Lord is I think about how a good waiter would be. What I would say is instead of waiting, let's insert the word serving the Lord. So as you are waiting for these things to happen, you're waiting for the promotion, you're waiting to get put on, you're waiting for the big opportunity, serve the Lord with your gift. And what does that mean? Let's break it down. I mean, using your time, talents, and energy to do something outside of just benefiting you. Because serving and faithfulness always makes you a candidate for promotion.
My God.
That's good.
And so, you know, as you are serving the Lord, you say, God, what can I do to be a blessing to someone else? What can I do to help my local church? What can I do to help my community? And do it for free.
For free.
I know we want to get the bag, and hey, I'm not discouraging anybody. Get your bag. Do your thing. Start your business. Do what you got to do.
Yes.
But what I'm asking you to do is just step back and consider prayerfully serving someone else and somebody else. Maybe somebody else's vision and mission for free.
Yes.
To be able to give you the opportunity to let God show you some things and elevate you in due time.
That's been one of the biggest blessings. Like literally, it's the secret to blessings.
Yeah.
Serving, you know, like in my most impactful moments of serving, that's when God gave me my most impactful blessings. When I was serving at my father's church before BCI was created, I was doing a community effort to like provide free counseling, right? And I was going there every Saturday morning at 7 and talking to homeless people, you know, people who were struggling with addictions and just giving them all of my attention. And during that time, God in the background is stirring up some stuff with this thing that he's going to give me. Right. And so literally while we are serving, he is cooking.
Absolutely. And
he in the kitchen.
He in the kitchen. And I have a real story. of something that happened recently over the last couple years for a pastor friend of mine. And he said, he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, David, can you pray for me, man? Just be in agreement with me for some doors to open up for me. I want to preach. I'm a pastor." He preaches to young people, and so he's a youth pastor. He said, "I want to continue to spread the gospel, but I want speaking engagement opportunities to open up. So just pray that, God would put me on people's hearts." And it sounded good, sounded noble. There was nothing wrong with it. I said, "Okay, brother." And as I began to pray into that, God started to put something specific on my heart to share with him. And so I shared it, and I said, God is speaking to me and saying, the opportunities that you're looking for may not come in the exact package that you think they will. And so just be open to what God wants to do. So long story short, he calls me back and we, talk it through. The following year, he said, "David, you will not believe what is going on in my life." I took that word to heart. I started to think about it and prayed about it. And God, he led me to our local school district, where I started to lead some chapel services for one of the athletic teams in the local high school. And he said it grew so much that they wanted me to do some stuff like in the school during the school day. He said that they gave me an opportunity to work at the what they call alternative school, right? For those who might have had a challenge background as they go through high school. So he starts ministering to them. So he's doing all this in a public school district, and it's having such a good and strong effect on the young people that they're asking for him to come back more. And then check this out. Here's the part where I want to get to, is that he said, "David, I need some help because now I'm venturing into an area where I'm unfamiliar with because they want to pay me for this." He said, "I talked to the superintendent who said he heard about me, and it was a superintendent from a different school district outside of their town. He said he heard about me and said he wants us to come to his school, and he said, we'll pay you for it." And he said, "I don't know what to charge." He literally said, "I don't know what to charge. I'm in the space that I'm unfamiliar with." But look what God is doing, right? He had a heart and desire. He said, "I want more speaking engagements." And he was thinking, a microphone and a platform in a church. But God had something else in mind. And look at that. As he was faithful, God is now going to pay you for it.
Ooh, whoa.
And I heard one man say this: if you are faithful to be obedient to do what God has called you to do, he'll always pay you even more than you're worth.
My God. I literally saw a vision of the bill coming to the table when you said that. And guys like, "No, I got this. It's already covered.
It's taken care of."
"Oh yeah, that guy over there took care of your check." I feel like that's how God is. It's I'm already working on it. Just keep serving. Just keep doing what I told you to do.
Yes.
And then it's going to come. But here's my question for you. How do you know? You talked about the guy who was at that moment, he didn't know what to charge. And some things that came up for me when I've been put in those positions is that I feel a lot of self-doubt. I feel unprepared. I feel unworthy. I feel out of place. I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
How do you overcome when God delivers this thing to you? Probably more than you imagined. And now you have to deal with the fact, how do I deal with this internal feeling of that this is not for me and I'm not good enough to deal with this?
Yeah. And I think insecurity tries to come for a lot of us, right? Psychology today estimates that 85% of people, not just adolescents, but everybody, 85% of people struggle with insecurity and low self-worth, and lack of really that lack of self-esteem.
Yes.
And I think it's something that is so common and so prevalent, but yet not a lot of people have the courage to talk about their process. It's one thing to talk about your successes, right? But I think people really can identify with the failures if we're courageous enough to talk about them and the insecurities. And so I say all that to say, I think a lot of times when we have our gifts, our talents, our dreams, the thing that God has put inside of our hearts, we have a picture of the road that it takes to get there, right? And sometimes that's not misinformed. Maybe you need education or you need certifications or different things. However, in the midst of taking that road, I think there's something else that happens, that as the insecurities and doubts show up, it's our job to make ourselves available to God's growth plan, to God's growth program. And here's what I mean. Let's say I'm a rapper, right? Now I'm not a rapper. I
got a few, like a rapper
I got a few bars, but just a few.
I'm going to ask you to spit some for us before the end of this.
Okay, maybe I got 2.5 for you, and that's when it'll come short. But
Pastor David's going to spit bars. Remember, guys, note that. Put that in notes. Okay,
I say all that to say. Let's say I'm a rapper. Let's say I'm a rapper and a singer, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'm working on my demo, trying to get out there, trying to get put on, right? And so I'm spreading it to everybody. I'm on the SoundCloud. I'm doing everything I need to do. It's all over my IG
page. Did you say SoundCloud?
I did say SoundCloud. Do people not use that? Dang, am I an old head now?
I just haven't heard SoundCloud in years.
Wow,
I'm getting
really?
distracted from your story, but I'm so sorry.
Okay, so whatever people, I don't know, you put it on TikTok.
Continue.
I don't know what folks do. Obviously, clearly, I'm not in that space, so
I'm sorry.
We don't have to worry about that. But anyways, let's say I'm putting my music out wherever music is consumed. Spotify.
Yeah,
okay.
That's much better. Let's go with Spotify.
All right, so let's go with Spotify. And I'm doing all that, and nobody's streaming my music. Like, I'm not getting no downloads. I'm not getting no play. I'm like, man, what's going on? I'm trying to get put on. And then God starts to put some in my heart about, let's say, my local church. I'm using this as an example.
Yeah.
And maybe just singing in the local choir, or maybe just being in the praise and worship team there. And I'm like, I really don't have time. I'm trying to hustle. I'm trying to get put on. God told me I'm supposed to be the #1 rapper in Chicago. Yeah. Like I'm trying to do all those things that I know to do. But I say, okay, well, I'll go volunteer. And so I go volunteer, and, something happens to where the choir director notices me for whatever reason and says, you got a really good voice, really like your voice. I'm like, oh, okay, well, thank you. Now I have all these doubts and insecurities swirling around because nobody's streaming my music. But yet the tenor next to me singing in the choir is like, hey, I need some help with these parts. You seem like you're able to, follow these notes really well. Can you help me with the parts? 4 months later, I got the whole tenor section saying, can you help us with parts? Now the choir director later is saying, hey, you do a good job with these parts. Can you help us with these parts? And then later on, I got a couple of tenors saying, we could use some extra help. Do you do vocal lessons or coaching?
Yes.
Like, well, not really.
Yeah.
But I guess I can help out. And so you all carve out some time. They bring you some Starbucks, and boom, you hit some notes. Well, 2 months later, you got other people asking, and now you're like, well, I don't have enough time. And what they say to you, well, I'll pay you for it.
That's the magic word.
And here's what happens in the midst of that process. Your gift is affirmed because of the value that you are giving to others. If you add value to others, even in the midst of your process, your gift will continue to be affirmed, even if you don't and haven't arrived yet at the ultimate place you want to be. I'm supposed to be the #1 artist in Chicago. I haven't arrived yet there, but if I allow myself to sit on this couch, doubt and insecurity will swallow me alive. But if I get up and I serve with what's in me, I actually give God an opportunity to use other people to affirm my gift because of the value that I start giving them, the value that I really start adding to where I'm at. I'm adding value to the choir. I'm adding value to the tenors. I'm adding value to other people who want to sing. So you see how that works? I believe when you focus on adding value, you allow your gift to be affirmed.
My God. I've never had that feeling so much. You guys have quickened. Like, I never have.
You see how she glitched a little bit?
My God.
She glitched.
I didn't understand that before until you start talking, and I just kept going like, oh my God. It's like I kept feeling something. It was, man, that part is just so important though. I don't understand how sometimes we just allow ourselves to get in these spaces where we just continue to doubt God. There is so much that he's done in other people's lives, in our lives, in the air, in the trees, and everything in between. Yet we sometimes doubt his ability to organize what comes next.
That's right.
Our pricing structure, giving us the insight and to know how to develop the business plan. Do we really think that he cannot? Like, there is so much that he's done bigger than that. The universe, for instance. He did that.
That's right.
But we doubt him to be able to download next steps in our business strategy.
Yeah. And I think furthermore, when we're so eager to get to where we're going, we don't allow God the opportunity, time, or space. Not that God is short on power, but we don't allow him the space to prepare our audience to receive what we carry.
Whoa.
And I think a lot of times, like I said, we're so quick to get there that we don't realize that God is actually trying to hold out because he wants it to hit at the right time, the opportune moment. You know, there's a scripture that says in Galatians that don't be weary in well-doing, but in due season you'll reap if you don't fade or if you don't lose heart or give up. And that due season, it actually means at the right or favorable moment.
Yes.
See, when you have the right thing at the right moment, man, it hits so much better. I mean, that thing hits. But I mean, if you got something that you think is good, but it's out of season,
yes,
out of place, then it doesn't hit as well. You know, it's always difficult when like it's the middle of the winter time and then like you're planning a trip to Florida, right? You're trying to go to Miami or somewhere warm. Maybe you're going to the Caribbean, going to the Bahamas, taking a winter vacation or break. And it's always kind of frustrating because it's wintertime here in Chicago. So Walmart is not selling like swim shorts and swim trunks.
Yes.
Like there's not a whole lot of flip-flops and stuff available. Now in the summertime, they got a whole section of them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the right season. But out of season, there's not a lot of demand for it, so it's hard to find. And I think sometimes what we try to do is we try to circumvent God's wisdom by trying to prosper our own gift out of season. But if we would just realize that God's timing is supreme, and if you are faithful, God will make sure that your gift hits at the right moment. He will hold out. He will hold you back for 2-3 years. Not that he's trying to hold your success back, but he's trying to hold you back from having to take the time, energy, exhaustion, anxiety, waste money, all trying to make something happen out of season.
Jesus.
And my one word to somebody is let God promote you in season because it's going to slap.
Woo!
Hey, somebody get the altar cloth.
I got it. Put it over, Tamar. Put it over.
Come on, get her. Y'all are so extra. Y'all so saved.
Jeez. That thing. Whoa. I can't even preach behind you after that, man. It's just so relevant. Here's a question for you. How do you discern between like having the lack of faith versus doing the work? Because you talked about this process, but that requires you to do the work to get to it. But a lot of people have a problem with discerning between should I use faith or should I actually like start this thing? Like, and then some people expect for God to do something. They have faith that he'll do it, but they've done no work to prepare for it. What about those people?
You already know. You already know.
I already feel it. All I felt was like that, you know, that thing before the gun goes.
Let me go ahead and take some shots. So God is a God of development. But what I've learned a lot of times in Western Christianity is people don't want the God of development. They want a genie.
Yes.
They want God to come down and bless them like the lottery with no work added. And I have one of my best friends, he says this, that any faith that puts all the responsibility on God is an irresponsible faith. I'll go one step further. It's a lazy faith.
Jesus.
I mean, even the word says faith without works is dead. Now, we're not out here trying to force stuff to happen. We're not out here just trying to do some arbitrary stuff. But I believe that behavior is always indicative of belief, right? So if I'm believing for a job, right? I'm believing that God is going to bless me with a position. Well, I should be getting myself in position, right, to be able to thrive in that position. This job, I want this, job in this field. So let me go get educated. Let me, take YouTube University. There's so much free knowledge, so many just free courses out there. Let me start to get equipped and educated. Let me see what's happening in the field. Let me research. Let me actually maybe volunteer. Maybe I have a friend who works in that field. Let me, take them to lunch and pick their brain a little bit. There's so much I can start to do to be able to forecast my ascension. There's so much I can do to be able to put myself in position so that I can win in the next season. And I think a lot of times as we are like believing by faith, we have to understand that God doesn't he doesn't do it exempt from our participation in it. I don't see a single miracle that Jesus did that didn't require someone to do something, say something, behave in some way, go get something, go here, there was always some indicator of their belief.
Yes.
And behavior is always an indicator of belief. And so even the first miracle that's documented in the Bible that Jesus did, what happened? Well, they poured the water into the cup, took it to the governor of the feast, and now when he drank it, I don't know, at some point, it turned into wine. But notice, it didn't turn into wine exempt from them following the instructions.
Yes.
And so I believe when we have true faith always leads to divine instructions every single time. Whether God has you saying something or doing something or meeting somebody or subscribing to this or writing this or recording this, whatever it is, God always gives instructions when we're truly divinely persuaded by our faith. Here's what happens a lot of times, Jackie, and then I'll let you respond.
I ain't got nothing to say.
A lot of times, and this is what I see as serving 14 years as pastor and, of course, growing up in the church just like you. Yeah. What I see a lot of times is because people's natural understanding, they don't understand how what they're sensing in their heart or their spirit connects with what they are believing for. They discount it and they put it to the side. They put it on the shelf. They're lazy about it. They don't do it. They run it by a couple other people and, consider their opinions rather than just fulfill the request and follow the instructions.
Whoa.
Most of the times, the instructions may not make a lot of sense compared to what you might naturally think is the progress or the process. And so I found that, when you just obey God, he'll bring you to the place where you'll have a fulfillment of the things that you believe for.
Without the full instructions. I think we expect God to give us a manual when he says, I just give you the next direction.
That's it. I mean, the next step. And when people come back to me frustrated and they say, Pastor David, God's failing me. He's not working. This thing ain't working out. And I said, whoa. Before we go that far, I always ask them a question. And 9 times out of 10, they actually respond no. I say, have you done everything that you know to do in your fullest capacity that God has put in your heart? And have you done the last thing in the fullest extent, the last thing that God has said to do?
Ooh.
A lot of times the failure goes back to just the last thing, just that one last thing. Oh, I actually didn't finish writing the business plan. God didn't tell me to start the business plan. He told me to write the business plan. God didn't tell me to just look for a job in this field. He told me to apply for a job in this field. See, sometimes we get so close that we almost start assuming we've done it all. But he didn't just tell me to look for the job. I'm talking to somebody. He told you to apply for the job. Because it isn't until we've been completely and wholly obedient that God's supernatural favor can kick in.
God in heaven. You just spoke to my entire life. This is what God does in real time. Like literally this podcast was the last instruction. God told me 3 things. BCI grew a lot in a quick amount of time. But there were 3 things that I felt like was too big for me to do. And I didn't have what I needed. He said, start the podcast, do the conference, and establish a team. Every single one of those things, I said, but I can't, but I need, but there's not. Those were my responses to God. And what you just said was literally the last thing that I needed to do. It's like I said start it. I didn't say finish it. I didn't say have the whole thing laid out on what you need to do. Just start. Start is literally putting the faith out there. I reached out to Hector in the DM. At the time, I didn't even have the money. I ain't had no money. I think I probably was in lack. And I said, hey, let's set a date to start this podcast in September.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, let's put it on the calendar. It didn't have nothing for it. And that was me starting it.
Wow.
Crazy now is that God was like, that's enough. Mm-hmm. That was enough.
That's enough.
That's all you got to do. Why is it so hard for us to start the thing, though? Is it fear of rejection? Is it fear of just us not being good enough? What is it stopping us? What do you think? I'm interested because I think when we know that and we can recognize it in ourselves to be like, that's it. That's me. We could probably prevent it.
You know, Jackie, I think for me, I can speak personally for me, I think it's more of a perfectionist paralysis, if I can say it that way. Like sometimes I tend to skew more because of my personality. I tend to skew more about, perfection, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it can be hard for me to start if I don't see all of the components nice and clean and laid out. I don't like messiness. I've never liked messiness. And
He does not.
So, some people thrive in messy environments.
Yeah.
I mean, they thrive. You can go to their home, everything is everywhere, and they're like, I'm living my best life. And I'm like, this is torture, bro. What you talking about? And so that's not me, right?
I feel attacked right now. I'm like, do not go behind the door.
No judgment to your environment. But what I'm saying is we're all different, right? And so because of that, I want things laid out nice and clean and it seems achievable. I don't even have an issue believing God. I've seen God do some amazing things. So I can believe him by faith for things that seem naturally impossible. But a lot of times it's that starting when I don't see the rest of the staircase, right? It's like the starting the one step. I'll be honest. And even, my latest book, my first solo book, Authentic, it took me 8 years to write that. Jeez. Amongst a lot of starts and stops because I kept feeling like, I'm too busy or I'm overwhelmed with work or I got this or I don't know or I don't have the right editor connected. And like you said, all of these excuses. But God said, David, when are you going to run out of excuses? Yeah. And what I've learned is that, life will always present you with more than enough excuses.
All the time.
Yeah. If you allow them. All the time. It will never be the right time. You'll never have enough money or you'll never have enough people on the team. But since when does God call us to do things that are convenient?
Not never.
Not no never. Never. And so you might as well suck it up and ask God to give you the courage to just go ahead and start, to launch out into the deep, to step out of the boat. Because you never know and nothing supernatural can happen as long as you are dependent on your natural feelings. I'm gonna snap to myself.
I feel like just sitting on this floor right now and just crossing my legs and just listening. This is the stuff that helps you. This is why I said in the very beginning, you got to have people around you that can make you feel hype.
Absolutely.
You know what? I'm about to go out here. I'm about to go ahead and just kill this lion and I'm going to eat it. That's how I feel after talking to you. Seriously, man. I feel like going out there and finding a squirrel just to practice like that.
Man, I've never had lion, but I'm down, but that's the thing that I really appreciate about you is that I've always seen you from the outside looking in. And I know we have relationships, so I have some insight on what's going on behind the scenes, but I've always seen you step out even when you don't have all the components in place or don't have everything, quote unquote, all together. And I mean, this podcast is the same thing. It's not like you've been talking to me about a podcast for 3-4 years. Like it's been a long time in the making. I mean, I know the earmark of someone stepping out in faith. I've seen enough to know when somebody is stepping out. Yes. And that is one thing I've always appreciated about you. But that is one of the things that is making you succeed, that has made you successful. And I tell, other people the same thing. And, sometimes I tell people, I say, y'all want the flying private jets, Bill Winston, but y'all don't want the sweeping floors on the west side of Chicago, Bill Winston. Like, because there was levels to this.
Yes.
There's levels to obeying and following God. And somebody's got to sacrifice and pay the price.
Yes.
And when we pay the price with our comfort, with our convenience, when we pay that price, God does some amazing things.
Ooh-wee. He will blow your mind.
Yeah.
And that's where we gotta like get to though. It's levels to it.
Yeah.
You just don't get here, right? God doesn't put you in a place you're not ready for. You have to pass the levels to get to that place.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of us are stuck on level 1 and we keep having to repeat it like the game, right? You keep dying. Start
Man,
from the
I used
beginning.
to hate that.
I used to hate that too. And Mario Brothers, that was my jam. But I was so upset. I would be like, yes, I got 7 lives left. 6, 5, 4, 3. Then you lose them all and then you got to start over.
Man, I used to hate those fire levels. Man, I would hate those fire levels.
Yo, that literally was the worst ever. Like you got to time it right to jump. That was the thing. It was all about timing.
Man.
But that really is life.
Yep.
We got levels to this.
Yeah.
And we got to pass the first one to get to the next. That's good. I want to do something because this is not like a formal, like, yeah, let's talk about this. Because I think a lot of us, if you have done this enough throughout this podcast, I'm going to tell you where you can get more.
How do you do that again? Oh, that was good.
It's oh my. I got it now. Like literally I felt it. What happens is it's a chill that goes through your body. It's like it starts here and then it goes up and then it gets to the shoulders and then it has nowhere to go. So you got to shake it out. This book that you have right now, if you guys have listened to this podcast, this is literally me telling you this is where you need to go next because this is him inside of this. There's no chat GPT. He did not have somebody write this for him.
That is the truth.
You know, everybody's using that now.
Yeah, I kind of feel shortchanged. I was like, man, this came out like a couple years too late.
See, God was like, no, I need you to get this out before ChatGPT is a thing. You really, like right now, ChatGPT is killing it.
It is.
But they don't have ChatGPT don't got Holy Spirit.
You right.
He ain't got God.
Oh, see, we could talk a whole
Bars.
podcast on that.
Whoa. We said we were going to wrap at the end.
Oh, you're trying to circumvent obedience by using AI.
Ooh. On another episode. That's deep. But okay, back to what I was saying, guys. This book, this right here, you said it took 8 years to get this out. I don't know why I felt like you already had about 5 books out. This is the first, though.
This is the first.
Where did this come from? Like, what type of things did you have to go through to get to this place of releasing this and talking about authenticity?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't understand how hard authenticity is. It's a balance. It's like literally, you got to be careful because if you do too much, if you share too much, then it's really not authentic. It's you bleeding on people. But if you share too little, then you're covering up. What in the world? How does this happen? Tell me more about this.
First of all, well said. That last part, I know we got to keep going, but that last part, that was a loaded statement. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it is a delicate balance. But authenticity is about integrity of the heart. Mm. And I like what Brené Brown says about transparency and about courage. And she defines courage as telling the story of who you are with your whole heart.
Yes.
And I think sometimes there's parts of our heart that it's like we try to hide and mask because we don't know if people will accept our story or accept who and how we are.
Yes.
And in our fullness, in our full expression. And when I'm talking about authentic, and I know, the world has tried to redefine what authentic means, but what I'm talking about authentic is I'm talking about the original you and how God, the creator of the universe, intended for you to be. Mm-hmm. Not our perception, informed by culture, yes. Right? I'm talking about how God intended for you to be. And this book came out of a struggle that I had for my own identity as far as who I was and how I was being significant in the plan of God, coming behind my father, who, by the grace of God, is a world-renowned leader, has built some incredibly big things for the kingdom and done some amazing things. And, growing up, it's amazing that, God would be using him to do great things. I mean, like God used him to start a bank. Like
This man got a bank, y'all.
who does that? Like, and even in retrospect, I've looked at some things that God has allowed us to do, and it's like, who does this? He's like a forerunner in some of these
He got
areas.
a bank. He got a restaurants. He got schools. Like,
I mean, a grocery store. Shout out to
store.
Living Fresh Market
The
in Forest
more I
Park.
find out about your father, the more I'm like, man, that's a hard
Yeah, I mean, and now we're doing
thing to be behind.
we're doing Operation 10 Cities mega events.
Yes.
in different major metropolitan cities
Giving
that are
away
huge.
Lots of money to the community. Not asking for a dime, just giving it away.
Just to rebuild the community and
Yes.
help people. But so on one side, like the one side of my brain is like, oh, praise God, that's so good. I'm
Yeah,
clapping
the
and
other side is
I'm
like-
applauding my father. Yeah, but the other side is like, how in the world
Right.
am I about to follow that?
It's like me trying to sing behind Yolanda Adams. I'm like,
Exactly.
I'm done.
And you're like, okay, well,
I'm
maybe I
leaving.
sing my little ooh ooh and then be
I'm
done.
not singing. I'm walking off. That's how I would feel. I'm like, I'm walking off right now.
And so, I had this place inside of me that I was not reconciled with who I think God wanted me to be. Yes. I'm here looking at the giant shadow that my dad is casting, and I'm like, God, how can I ever fill those shoes?
Yes.
Like, how can I add a part two to that as I carry on the legacy of faith? And God said, I'm not asking you to fill his shoes.
Ooh.
I'm asking you to continue to walk in his footsteps and stand on his shoulders in your shoes. And that's where the revelation hit me.
My God.
That God wants me to be me in order to accomplish the purpose in which he's called me to. And I learned that I actually can't accomplish God's purpose for my life in its fullness without being exactly who God has called me to be. Because my personality, my makeup, and my purpose are actually uniquely intertwined and inseparable.
Yes.
And the less I am myself, the more purpose seems to evade me. And so I just learned, man, I got to be me. And there's just a series of things that I went through in Revelations. And so it actually started with a series that I was teaching in the youth ministry when we had youth group on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
And this was back in 2015. And people kept saying, man, this is so good, so good. You need to make this into a book and, you should write about it. So I started there. And like I said, through a series of stops and starts, I was finally able to bring it to full completion and get everything out that I feel like God had put in my heart. And I know there's not everybody's a preacher's kid, and not everybody has that has those same stipulations. However, I think we all can agree that we've gone through our own series of insecurities, right?
Oh, yeah.
All of us have gone through our own episodes of doubting ourselves, wondering if we're the person who's good enough, strong enough, intelligent enough, funny enough, talented enough for the calling to which God has called us to. And so what I do is in this book, I help break down how to not only build the confidence in being yourself, but how to get and take hold of the courage necessary to release the great things God has put inside of you.
God be with you. Literally this whole time you got me like really feeling like my mom here, like the shivers, the humming. It all comes from a place. But if you want to have that feeling, y'all know, follow him, find this man of God. He's literally, you're powerful in your own right. And I know you know that now, but I just had to say that, like, man of God, there is so much power. It's in awe. I'm so grateful to be a friend and to be a person that's in your life. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. You're welcome. See you later.